Before dawn Sunday morning, University of Pennsylvania professor Janet Monge and her colleagues wheeled precious cargo across 34th Street to the hospital at the University of Pennsylvania.
Hopefully nobody knows what we have.
What they have are 30 skulls that make up part of the 139 skull Hurdle collection, the centerpiece of the Mutter Museum. Several days earlier, Anna Doty carefully plucked a skull from a display cabinet at the museum.
Here we go. We have Julius Farkas, age 28, a Protestant soldier, suicide by gunshot wound of the heart because of weariness of life.
Doty is the curator of the museum, which is dedicated to medical oddities and rare human specimens. She hands the skull to Professor Monge, who packs it in a bubble wrap bag.
It was uncommon to have people collected that were just regular people. So oftentimes you get a lot of criminals and people who did, unusual acts.
The Hurdle collection has skulls of some regular people from 19th century Europe, a lovesick teenager, a cabin boy, a soldier, a shoemaker, as well as some unique characters. There's the tightrope walker who died of a broken neck, and a famous Viennese prostitute. Each has his brief story written in meticulous cursive on the side of his skull.
That's what makes this collection so rare, this kind of known population. As Janet was saying, there's very few of them in the United States. And to have one that is, again, predominantly European is definitely a benefit.
The collection has fascinated people at the Mutter Museum for more than a century. On Friday, a group of EMTs in training clustered around the 99 skulls still on display.
A lot of these skulls is they're amazing, really. It just goes to show what people went through back in the days. It was just crazy. A lot of these skulls must have suffered a lot of pain before they, passed on. So it's kind of sometimes when I first walked in and saw them, it was kind of hard to, to bear. But after and then looking and just reading, so a lot of them suffered and a lot of them didn't.
Take, for example, Giza, curator Anna Doty's favorite skull.
And it says here he died at 80. He's from Hungary or Romania. A reformist herdsman, and at the age of 70, he attempted suicide by cutting his own throat. However, the wound was not fatal because he had an ossified larynx. So, and he had a laryngeal fistula that remained, and he lived until 80 without melancholy. Which I just like the way it kind of ended on a happy note, in a sense. So you have, in this one card, we have this entire story, this chunk, and I think it's just amazing.
Now Giza will tell a different story, perhaps that of human development or evolution or variation. That's why the 30 skulls were packed and moved over to the University of Pennsylvania Hospital this weekend to be CAT scanned and preserved digitally. Monge explains that the scanning of the Hurdle collection of skulls is part of a project she's leading that will also scan all the skeletal specimens at Penn Museum.
Our hope is to actually make a virtual museum of all of these skeletal specimens because in lots of aspects of anthropology, biology, bioengineering, many of these kinds of things, it becomes really key to have a comparative specimen and one that's virtual, where everything is digitized, where everything, basically you can assign a number to, makes it a much more efficient way to do research.
In the hospital's radiology department Sunday morning, the skulls rest on a bed of sheets, one at a time, for scanning. Monge and her colleague Tom Schoeneman from James Madison University have scanned full mummies here, even solved some mysteries.
It was very delicately sewn cloth around what looked to be a head, and nobody wanted to rip it open to figure out what was inside, so scanning it. And I believe there was a skull in it, but probably of a very, very young child or maybe a stillborn child. It's hard to tell.
Ultimately, Schoeneman and Monge want to take all the skull scans and merge them into one digital reference human. The Hurdle skulls would add Europeans to the other populations they've already scanned.
And then once we have a reference human, when someone needs to do a comparison or look at a pathology, they can see what the normal range of variation is in humans.
Janet Monge hopes the skulls will be of interest to a wide range of researchers, like Robert McCarthy, an assistant professor at Florida Atlantic University.
Everything that I'm interested in looking at in research question-wise is basically inside the skulls.
McCarthy uses CT scans to get inside skulls without damaging them. He's especially interested in microcephaly, or tiny heads. Though the Hurdle collection includes only one microcephalic head, that's enough to increase McCarthy's digital sample size by about 15%. He says the Hurdle collection will be a valuable addition to the small amount of digital skull data available.
A lot of the anthropological questions that we'd like to answer are about human variation. And, if you want to know about human variation, you have to have a lot of different individuals from different populations. And certainly this will fill that need.
Janet Monge is making all the CAT scan data freely available to anyone who wants it. So skulls like that of Giza or Julius Farkas can continue to tell us stories from beyond the grave. From WHYY's Health and Science Desk, I'm Carrie Grenz.